Hey, this is Daniel. In this video, I'm going to show you how to make this awesome scene in Blender using completely free assets you can get online. I'm also going to throw in a link down below to another free asset, which will be my custom spaceship that I made for this scene from my Star Wars kitbash product. And along the way, you're going to learn a lot of awesome tips. Now, I'm not going to be doing any actual modeling in this video, but along the way, you're going to learn how to set up atmospheric haze or fog, how to set up scenes, scale things cinematically, set up your camera, do HDRI lighting, and a lot of other great techniques that are essential for building cool scenes in Blender. So let's get started. Okay, so here is the scene, and it is really quite simple. Let me just zoom out and show you what it looks like. There's two pieces of terrain. There's a cube with volume in it, super easy to set up, and the assets from Chuck CG. I'll show you how to get those in just a second. And of course, we got our spaceship down here with some glowy lights on the underside. Very simple, but very effective. I posted this on a Facebook group for sci-fi, and I asked people to write me a story, and boy, I got some awesome little mini stories written about this piece. It was really fun. So let's get started by downloading the different assets that were used in this scene. We're going to find Chuck CG on Gumroad.com. This artist is such a generous and talented guy. Every time he posts something, I make sure to get it as soon as possible and add it to my library of assets. But we're going to use one of his more recent ones, the ancient architecture. So go there, send him $10,000. And once you downloaded the file, you're going to come to this site. We're going to download the blend file version, because in the next step here, I'm going to show you how to turn everything in this blend file into actual assets and use it in your asset browser in Blender. So the file itself is 120 megabytes. Not too bad. There's some really great textures that he's made for these objects. That's probably what uses up most of the space. Now, once you've downloaded the blend file, it's very important that first you put it in the right location. So in my organizational system here, I have a few folders where I put different types of assets, kitbashes, textures, things like that. This one is technically a kitbash piece. I'm going to go in that folder. And then look at this. I have a whole folder just for Chuck stuff. I'm going to open up, and I'm going to make another subfolder for ancient architecture. Now, I already have it there. So I'm going to just call this one 2, because I've already added it personally, but this one's just for the video, and paste the blend file right there. Awesome. Now let's open it up, and we're going to do a few tweaks to it to get it ready so that Blender can see things as assets and have them organized inside the Blender asset browser. So here it is with all the stuff. We got the terrain and the building pieces. Let's press B for box select and just grab all the objects here. Make sure they're all orange. Oh, look, I missed that top one. Shift, click that little guy. Yep, everything else is selected. You can just make sure by moving it. And I don't want the sun to become an asset. We don't care about the sunlight. So hold shift and right click, or for you, maybe left click to deselect that one. Now with all these orange and active in the outliner, I'm going to right click over here on any one of them and click mark as asset. Right now, I'm going to switch to the Blender Asset Browser, which is here, Asset Browser, and I am looking in current file. Now, because this blend file is actually in the kitbash / Chuck CG / ancient architecture folder, it's ultimately within the kitbash main folder, and in my Blender preference settings, it's looking in that folder for blend files that have assets. So if I go to preferences and then go down to file paths, here we go. Asset libraries, right? Oh, yeah, these are libraries. So my kitbash, one that's named kitbash, refers to the actual folder called kitbash. All my things are one-to-one comparison, so there's no confusion. It's very clear for me, at least, to know what's where in Blender and what's where on my hard drive, because they're pretty much the same thing. So with that set up, with your blend file in the correct folder, you should see anything you've already organized, such as this. So I have a Chuck CG catalog for all his things, and I'm going to click the plus sign to add an ancient Arc 2 catalog. And there's nothing in here, right? Because we haven't added any assets. So we need to go to unassigned, which is unassigned assets in this blend file. Because remember, this has current file. I'm just going to select these guys, and I'm going to drag them into Arc 2. Oh, and one quick thing I forgot to do is to apply rotations, because I think one of these, yep, there it is. It has a rotation, and it'll get weird later. So let's just grab these again with box select, Control A, apply rotation. And if you want, you can apply scale as well. Well, maybe not for that one. There we go. Now, if the asset browser updates its view, let's see if it does. Arc 2, it's not. So watch this. If I press in, click this refresh button, there we go. See, the rotation was wrong. There we go. And it updates the little thumbnail. Why are they purple? Well, for some reason, it's not loading the texture files like this one did. I don't know why. There is a few little quirks and bugs in the asset browser that still need to be worked out. And that's probably one of them, is improving the thumbnail generation. So anyway, these are ready to use forever after in any project you want. And they are organized, at least for me, the way that I just did it. So let's start a brand new blend file and get to building. Okay, now I am using K-Cycles X 3.2 just because it renders faster for me. There is no difference in this video from the normal Blender version. Don't worry about that. So let's open up our asset browser on top, which is the way I personally like to do it. If you have two screens, you can definitely make a new window and put this in your second monitor. But I'm going to go to my kitbash library, my Chuck CG catalog, and Ancient Arc 2. Here they are. This is the first one I made, which I did not fix the rotation on these guys. Lesson learned. Here we go. We have all the objects here. I forgot to mention this earlier. I actually used another landscape of his, which is from a free asset from Chuck CG. So it is on his Gumroad. Go download it. But it's called Landscapes. And it's beautiful, beautiful EXR maps he made. Very high detailed. And I think I used terrain 4 for this scene. I'm going to scale this up big time. Yeah, this is it. I really like the desertness of this landscape. And I think I used this open area right here for my scene. So this is the foreground terrain. Now, one trick that I like to use is if I don't have enough terrain stuff to pull from, which I often don't because I don't have a really big library of terrain yet, I'm actually just going to duplicate this and throw it in the background and enlarge it and rotate it so that we have more, more terrain in the background to give us a better sense of depth and just great scale on an alien world. So let's go press 7 for an above view. Shift D and move this over here. I believe that's our background. Yep. And let's get our camera set up so that we can start seeing what this is going to look like, right? I'm going to move my viewport view down to pretty close down to ground level, and then press Control-Alt-0, which will grab your active camera in your scene and place it where your 3D view is. So that's good. G, Z, Z to move straight back. And put it right there. Don't want to show the edge of the terrain. Now let's grab our other terrain object, which is hiding back there. And in our camera view, I'm going to scale it up really big, like S4, S4 again. Okay, let's just scale it up really. All right, now we have got our terrain thing way back here. We're going to rotate it. Oh, make sure you're on individual origins. RR to rotate freely. And let's just be creative and free with this and try to get something that doesn't look like our foreground terrain, obviously. Scale it up really big. Oh, look out for the edges. Yeah, that's pretty good. And we do want to make sure it's pretty far back there. Yeah, it's way back there. So that'll really help with the depth. Now, let's start building with the assets we got set up earlier. So Ancient Arc 2. I'm going to make the central tower here. When you drop something in, it will try to snap onto other faces, which in this case is all crazy. So Alt-R to reset your rotation. Scale it down a little bit. I'm going to start just kind of building this tower here. Scale that down. Just kind of building like Legos, you know. Cool. I'm using S to scale and G to move. I'm actually going to swap these because I wanted an opening on the bottom. So I'm going to move that down, scale it up, move this one up and scale it down. There we go. Just like Legos. And this is probably my favorite part of kit bashing. It's just throwing things together really quickly, being creative without having to be too technical because the modeling is already done. And I love that. Sometimes when you have to be technical and build stuff on the spot, you sort of lose that creative groove that you can be in sometimes. And it's just not good for productivity. Okay, that looks pretty sweet and ancient and very imposing. I want to make sure everything's lined up really nicely. So let's see here. And just kind of looking at things like squares, making sure stuff is mostly centered. Does not have to be perfect. Okay, and now I do have this opening, and I want some stairs to be leading up into this opening right here. So drop in a stair thing, Alt-R to reset the rotations. It is we're facing the wrong way. So RZ180, enter. 7 for an above view. Let's place it here and scale it down big time. If people are walking up these stairs, that sort of sets a little bit of the scale. Oops, wrong side. There you go. And to make it even smaller, we can just use 2 of them. So from a side view, I'm going to put this one here and another one right there. You can fill in this gap later with a brick with the same texture, just so there's no gap there, unless you want there to be. And honestly, that little gap is probably not going to be visible because this render we're going to do is very hazy and mysterious. Okay, so I just grabbed the whole shape there. Let's drop it onto the ground. Make sure it's contacting, if not buried in the sand a little bit. That's okay, right? If this thing's ancient, it's gone through a lot of climate changes and sand drift, maybe flooding, and then desert again, all that cool stuff. I like that. To give it a more imposing and intimidating view, we're going to make it really large. So that means putting the camera kind of close, looking up from a low angle, like ground level, and giving it a wide angle. So let's go from 35 to 18, maybe 22. Okay, cool. And let's use these aqueduct things on the side. Oh, they're really big. Really big. Coming off of the side of the tower like I did in my original render. We can bury this inside the tower. It's okay. Because I want it to be like a bridge or an aqueduct coming out. Yeah, that placement looks pretty good. And then in between each aqueduct, I wanted one of these watchtowers, which I don't want it to be as big as the main temple there. So we need to make sure we have proper scaling so that the story can be told that this is the main thing, and these are just little guys on the side. Don't want to distract from the point of focus here. Okay, I'm looking from this is a flat front view, and I can see a little bit of a gap. I don't want that gap, so let's move that in like that. Cool. Now we're going to start duplicating this thing out on the x-axis, so Alt-D-X. Bury it a little bit like that, and then Shift-R will repeat your last step. Cool. Alt-D-X over here. Try to have it come out symmetrically. And then the tower, Alt-D-X. Cool. And then same thing, we can duplicate this out the other direction. So Alt-D-X, and then Shift-R, Shift-R. Cool, so from our camera view, we've got this cool setup. And maybe we don't want it going into the mountain, so we can just slide our whole landscape forwards a little bit. Let's scale it if we need to. Yeah, that's cool. Let's try our camera view. Nice. We've still got these really big fake fake mountains in the background, which will be great for the atmospheric effect we're going to do in a bit. Awesome. All right. Let's go to our render view just for curiosity's sake and see what it's looking like. Pretty cool. Kind of basic. Looks like there's no atmosphere on this planet because there isn't. It's just space. But let's change that. So I am going to get rid of my sunlight, which is this light object, which, you can turn this around, make it look like you're using Unreal 5 because they love to do this. They love just shifting their sun around in their demo videos. Let's delete that and let's use an HDRI. So in your World tab, click on the color, click on Environment Texture, and open an HDR image. You can get these from a number of free websites. I want one with a clear sun and a little bit of sky texture, and obviously nature. I don't want buildings or anything, so let's find something kind of desert-y. And let's do flat. I'll use this one, Goey Gap. Because the sun is super harsh, it's already a desert scene, and I want to see the sun. Okay, I'm playing with my rotation settings here because I got to get that sun visible. There it is. Ooh, that's looking cool. I had it coming through the archway of one of the arches, and I like that look. Let's try to get that again. I'm literally rotating this image all crazy just to get what I want. All right, cool. Right on the edge, we got the sunset going on here. Now, before we get to the cool atmosphere haze, which is probably the whole reason why you're looking at this video, I noticed there's some gaps here underneath the buildings. So let's raise our terrain up just a little bit. GZ, fill in those gaps. Awesome. There we go. Cool. Okay, so I'm going to click right down here, kind of just in the middle of my scene on the floor, Shift A, add a cube. Good old default cube. We're going to make it to Papa Proud. Make it really big by scaling it up ginormous, like so. Basically to cover your whole scene area and just behind the camera. See our camera right there. Bloop, we want the camera to be in there. Awesome. You can extend this to go back if we need to, just to cover more volume. Get it? Because we're going to use a volume shader. So in your node editor, up here on top, let's switch to object. This cube has no texture. Click new, delete the BSDF, Shift A, type in VOL, and use a principled volume. We're going to plug this into the volume input. Very important. Don't plug it into a surface because we don't have a surface. This is a volume cube. Put your density down to 0.03. Awesome, nice and clear. Just to let some sunlight through. And there you have it. That's your atmosphere trick. A default cube with 0.03 density of volume. You can make this any color you want to have it more foggy or darker. A little color grading effect. I added this on my original render. I added a sandy yellow color, just like that. You can increase the density if you want. Whoa, that's a little too much. Let's turn it down to 0.05. Pretty thick, like that's like a sandstorm. So 0.03 is pretty good. Now let's add that spaceship in here, which is from another one of Chuck CG's asset packs. I think he was in his sci-fi structures one. Yeah, sci-fi ship. Where did it go? Oh, it's really big. Let me hide my background world. There we go. So here's his spaceship. It's ginormous. Maybe you want it that big. I don't know. I don't. I want it like a maybe 4-passenger type ship, as if it had crashed in the sand. Give it a cool angle there. Now I want this to be an interesting shot. So I'm going to move this closer to the camera. Awesome. And also, let's talk about composition, because right now the composition can be improved a lot. The main interesting thing, other than ship, is the door of this tower. It's right in the middle. It could be more interesting by making it not the middle. So we're going to just grab our camera and rotate it this way so that we're using the rule of thirds. The interesting object should always be, unless it's centered, it should be on a third line. So in this case, we're going to put it on that third line. And the ship will be on this third line over here. So your human eye will probably go to this thing because it'll have a bright blue glow under it in just a minute. And then we go over to this, which will have an orange glow, and then probably to the sun, which we can no longer see. Oh, that's because I turned this off. There it is. Still, we can still see it. Cool. So to get that blue glow underneath the spaceship, I'm going to press period to zoom into the ship, and then / to solo it out. And again, I don't like seeing that HDR. There we go. Turn that off. So in edit mode, I'm just going to grab some of these underneath faces. This ship does not use a mirror modifier for some reason. So we're just going to grab symmetrical faces. There. Cool. Press I to have this inset. Materials, make a new material, click new. Make it an emissions, and use the bright blue color. Let's turn it up to 50. And then make sure to click assign. There we go. Now only those faces with that material assigned to it will glow. Press / to get out of that solo mode. And voila, we have really cool undercarriage lighting on your spaceship. I'm going to make this camera look a little bit higher and be a little bit lower. There we go. Cool. Now let's render this and see what it's looking like. All right, and here it is, and it is not very wowing me right now. This has a lot of work to be done to be as good as my original art or to be even better. So let's make a few changes. One thing I noticed is that this is technically a sunset scene, and I want to keep it like that. But this blue sky is really killing the vibe of the colors that I want in this scene, and it's just not a sunset sky. So let's get rid of the HDRI, and let's change it into something else. So go to Shader, World, and let's just delete this guy right here. Shift A, search, type in sky, sky texture, plug it into the background color. And now we have this really cool shader that emulates sky texture. Let me show you what it looks like. Oh, I can't see it because I need to turn on my scene world. There we go. And whoa, big brightness. Okay. Let's turn that sun down a little bit. Turn down our sun intensity fader. And we can control the rotation of where the sun is. And there actually is a sun disk. Where is it? Elevation, how high it is. One really cool thing about this shader is you can increase the air, dust, and ozone sliders to get some really great, interesting atmosphere effects. I think I want a lot of air to add to that oranginess and a little bit of dust. I'm going to make my sun size a little bit bigger. Oh, there's the sun up there. Let's put it a little bit lower. So elevation, lower, great. So there's the sun disk. I'm going to drop it down in between these mountains, and I'm going to change the size of it to something that we can see on screen. There we go. That's a nice sun size right there. Later in post editing, I might want to add some, glow, glare, lens flare on it maybe. Awesome. So depending on how alien you want your world to be, you can go crazy with these sliders. Dust, no dust. Ozone, no ozone. There's also altitude. And I think I want my haze to be thicker. So I'm going to go and change it to 0.04. Now, if I'm trying to select stuff on my scene, sometimes it grabs the cube, which is the atmosphere cube. So you can actually make that unselectable by turning off that cursor option in the filters, restriction toggle. So turn on the select option. Now you can no longer select the cube, which is great if you don't want to accidentally select it. I think my background terrain is blocking some of the sun rays. So I'm going to move that down a little bit right there. You can control the overall strength of this shader by using the background strength as opposed to the sun intensity. Maybe put sun intensity at 1, and then you can turn this up or down to make it kind of a darker scene. Make sure you've got contrast set up. So in your render tab, scroll down, go to color management. With filmic set, I'm going to go to medium high contrast. Awesome. I'm going to zoom into this bottom part, grab these two faces here. I'm going to add a light emission. So with those faces selected, material, add a new material, new, make it an emissions, and let's give it an orange color, which is opposite of what the spaceship glow is doing. Click assign, and now you've got glowing doors. I don't really want the glowing doors to be visible. I just want the glow to kind of be emanating through the hallway in a creepy way. So let's move these faces back a little further inside. Yeah, just out of visibility. There we go. So the shine is coming through like it's some torches or something magical. Now, nothing against this ship that Chuck CG has made in one of his kitbash sets. It is cool. It is not my style. And that's okay. But to add value to this video that you're watching, I'm going to include a free download for a ship that I'm about to kitbash using my Star Wars kitbash kit. I'm going to just time-lapse that real quick, and you can get the download for just that ship and its parts for free down below. All right, so let's say goodbye to Chuck CG's beautiful ship, and let's import the one that I just kitbashed. I'm going to use append, and there it is. So I'm using a circle empty to kind of hold everything together. Just makes it easier for me to aim it and place things. This cube is annoying because that is our atmosphere, so I'm just going to hide it. Select my empty here. Let's get this ship positioned in a good place. It just crash landed, so maybe little funky angle here. Maybe it dug into the sand. If you want to get extra, you could model the dirt going down, add some rocks and crater and stuff like that. I'm not going to be extra in this tutorial. So let's just make it dug into a little hill there. Cool. Now I need to do a little basic texture work on this ship. In my Star Wars ship kitbash product that you can buy, it includes some amazing super cool textures that are really great for just sci-fi stuff in general. I'm not going to include those in this freebie, but I am going to have some decent kind of metallic-y texture here. that just kind of glints a little bit. Let's add some ambient occlusion. Mix it with a base color here using multiply. Cool. Let's also overlay some random colors or random values for the different parts of the ship. That is not visible until you go into rendered view. Okay. And I gotta have at least the cockpit with some black shiny material, black glass here. Awesome. Now let's add some irregularities to the roughness, which is currently is .323. So let's set this at .3 for our starting value of reflection. And on top of that, we're going to mix in using screen mode some noise. See all that? Awesome. You can make it look rusty and old, or like it just had a hard time coming through the atmosphere. Or maybe it's just a dirty ship like the Millennium Falcon always is. I'm going to mix a little bit of this same noise on top of the color. Just a little bit. Cool. Move this a little bit closer to the camera. There we go. That looks nice. There we go. I'm just playing with my sun shader to get more of a dramatic sunset light. And I feel like the sun is a little bit big. Let's size it down a little bit, which will make the shadows sharper. I like the sky colors are a lot better now. Let's see what it looks like with some atmosphere. Oh yeah, that atmosphere really eats up the light. So you do need to be careful how much you're using. I think I increased it earlier to .06. Let's go to .04. That's a little better. And I do want some sun rays coming through here. So maybe I need to turn back up my sun. Yeah, it's hard getting a balance, you know? You gotta get enough sun, but not too much sun. Really depends on what kind of vibe you're going for with your piece of art. There we go. I just stretched this tower to be a little bit more imposingly tall in the middle. Before we render again, let's turn on our compositor settings and turn that on in the middle. Shift A, search. Type in GL for glare. Put it on fog glow with a low threshold. And that'll add some glow to the sun, hopefully. Let's hit render and see what this looks like. Ooh, that's cool. That really added a lot of glare to that sun. I'm getting a lot of noise. Let me make sure that my denoise is turned on. It is. How interesting. I'm not sure why there's so much noise in this scene. Maybe we just need some more samples. Let's go up to 300 samples. And because this is K-Cycles X, I'm going to turn on Ultra Denoiser, which usually gets some really good results. Awesome. I'm not really feeling the scale of this thing. I feel like this ship is big and this is not so big. I wanted this to look like 4 times bigger. So I'm going to shrink my ship and move it a little closer to the camera. I know, you're probably thinking, man, Daniel, you don't know what you're doing with this scene. And you know what? It's okay, it's art. I'm going to shrink this opening as well to make the doorway actually smaller. Drop that down like that. And then I'm going to shrink this as well in like that. Let's see how that looks. Now make sure your glowing thing is bright enough and close up enough to be seen. I'm going to turn it up to 40. Let's just go up to 50. Awesome. Yeah, I'm definitely feeling the scale is better and now with those changes. Let's make sure that the ship is properly in the landing gear, or the nose is dug down into the sand. So the 3 points of interest: the ship, then the light here, and then the sun. All right, now to help the dramaticness of the scene, I did add an actual sunlight object. Even though we have the sun shader, I added a sun object here, and I pointed almost right at the camera. You can see as I move it, those sun rays really just, wow, God rays, really cool. So I kind of like pointing down so that we can see the rays coming at us, but do whatever you want.
I did add some rock assets on the ground, which are from another Chuck CG asset pack you can get for free. This is just a good way to add a little minor details here and there to make your scene more believable and interesting to look at. Now, a better way to do this will be to use geonodes to scatter these rocks around, but I'll save that for another tutorial. And in fact, I already have made that tutorial, and so have a bunch of other people. So I won't do that here. Some scattered pieces of the ship would be really cool to add, maybe behind it, like pieces broke off. But I'll leave that to you to add those little final touches to bring your piece of art to life. Lastly, I'm going to put some birds flying in the sky. So I'm going to go to File, Import, and Images as Planes. I found some free stock photos online with birds. So let's bring a few of those in. I'm going to use this one, Add Image. And it literally makes an image plane with a picture on it. That's no good to us right now. So let's size it up, turn it towards the camera, and let's play with this shader to make the white part transparent. So shader editor, here we go. We're going to use the color output as an alpha channel, which it totally is not. But now we have the birds are transparent and the white is visible. So make a color ramp node. Drop it right there and flip-flop the white and black. And now we have, let me get rid of my fog cube. There we go. Now we got birds, geese or something, and play with the alpha with the color gradient there. I really just want them to be black silhouettes, so you can unplug that and just make it black. Cool, so now we have some birds flying in a line. Adding stuff like this really adds some character to your scenes, especially if you want it to look like a habitable planet that humans could live on. I'm going to open up a different one. Let's do the V, because them geese love to fly in formation. This image has different contrasts, so it's a little trickier. Let's play with this color ramp a little bit more. Get these clouds out of there. Awesome, there we go. They're just little specks in the air, and that is okay. Another thing I remember that I did in my original art was that I added some dirt and noise to the textures that were already provided for these towers, because they were just too clean and nice. I wanted some more age and grime on them. So a really easy way to do that is go into the texture. Now each of these do have their own texture, so this did take a little bit of time to kind of go and paste this into all the stuff. But here's how you did it. You go to new, type in Moosegrave Noise, Shift A, Mix RGB, drop it on there, and we're going to layer this on top of the color texture using Multiply, turn it all the way up. Let's solo that part by pressing the / and mess with the settings here. And just add a little bit like that. So it's not all the way on, but it's just dirtying things up a bit. And then I went and clicked on these two nodes, Control C to copy them. And I went to each object here and just basically did that same thing, inserted it into the chain. And eventually you'll have them all done and they'll all be dirty. And there you have it. After way too much tweaking and playing with the balance of the volume and the light and the ambient light and all that stuff, I'm pretty happy with this. I think I'll call it quits now for this, just for the sake of time.
Well, I hope that was as fun for you as it was for me. I would love to see your renders, so please send your finished renders that you're proud of to my email down below. Put your own spin on it, write a story, add your own stuff to it. I want to see what y'all make with this tutorial. Thanks for watching so much. Be sure to share this online, like and subscribe, all that stuff. And thanks for watching. Hope you'll come back again soon.